Welcome to the Riding in the Weeds podcast, where we tackle life's inevitable challenges, from navigating mountain bike trails to overcoming business hurdles and forging deeper connections with pets and people. It's easy to find yourself tangled in the weeds, but we're here to help with insights and strategies that'll get you out of the weeds. Our goal is to boost your performance in both sports and everyday life by sharing essential skills that we've learnt along the way. Through tales of our entrepreneurship journey, thrilling biking adventures, and fostering meaningful relationships, your hosts, Natasha, Lockey, and Ginny Branden, will guide you on a journey that's not only enjoyable, but also inspiring. Join us to gain confidence that you need to navigate the trails of life. Welcome to Riding in the Weeds. You are here with Ginny and Tash for episode 60. Today, what we are talking about is if you believe the bad stuff that you think about yourself, you gotta believe the good stuff too. Because there is not good without bad, there is not bad without good. And at the end of the day, if we take the two pieces and we add them together, then we get awesome. So, what kind of things are you telling yourself? What world are you living in? Are you living in the world where you actually can't see the good and all you focus on is the bad? Or are you living in a world of balance where, yeah, you can see that you're not perfect, but you can also see that sometimes you do great. Sometimes you trip, you fall, and you don't do so good, you get up, and it's how that we come out the other side. So buckle up. Let's get into this. I am Natasha Lockey. I am a performance mountain bike life coach. I'm here to help you steer yourself out of the weeds and have a little bit more fun on your way to living your dream life. We have Ginny Branden, who is our resident animal pet communicator. She's an amazing business owner, loves to ride and work with horses, and always brings an amazing perspective to the conversation. So, Ginny, how's the voice in your head?
If I'm being really honest, she's pretty mean. That's a work in progress. So what about you? Huh?
Oh my goodness, she is horrid.
Yeah.
I was actually just sharing with Jenny before we jumped on. A reel popped through on my social media somewhere that was Jessica Bayo singing a song that was I Wish I Could Break Up With Me. And the lyrics totally hit so close to home because she's like, I would not take this from somebody else, yet I let myself talk to myself. I let myself put myself through hell over and over again. And some days I just wish I could break up with me. And I was like, oh, you are hitting a chord. And I think what's worse is that social media feed feeds into all of those fears, all those insecurities, all of that stuff. And unfortunately, it's like the algorithm knows you better than you know you. So the algorithm knows all of the things that you're telling yourself and likes to make them more under a magnifying glass, which isn't nice.
No, not at all. And it's funny that you found that song in the same week that I ended up seeing a friend's post. A friend of mine, Fee, posted about how her partner made the comment to her that if you believe all the bad things that you tell yourself about yourself, that you have to believe the good things too, because both things can be true at the same time. And we are neither all bad or all good. It's a both and situation. I think so often we allow that negative voice to just run our lives and run rampant in our heads, and we never argue with it, even though we have lots of feedback that is available to us from other people around us, from the work we do, from the productivity we have, from all the different places in the world. Heck, even our pets, right? Our pets are showing us that we are lovable and that we are worthy. And yet we just still insist that it's not true. It's not, that can't be true. That can't possibly be true.
Yeah, it's crazy that we just cannot look at the evidence and take that. When it comes to biking, this is where the yes and is so very true. Yeah, you're a beginner mountain biker. Yeah, you're not shredding black diamond trails. You're out there learning how to get around a corner, learning how to have some balance, learning how to use your brakes. On the scale of things, you're probably not that great of a biker at the very beginning because you've just started. Always, and all physical pursuits, it's like as soon as you get good at push-ups, well, you do more of them, so it still feels hard. Like, we never really reach the top. However, if you're step outside of yourself and you go back to the office and you're telling your workmates that you went mountain biking this weekend, they're all like, wow, she's a mountain biker. That's so cool. You're so brave. I can't believe you do that. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not very good. And they're like, so I don't even want to get on a mountain bike. I'm terrified. And so that dichotomy of, we feel like we need to have achieved a certain level of something. But I tell you what, even the person who is winning the gold medal at the Olympics still has that voice in their head telling them that they're not enough. And then it gets worse because now they've got a gold medal. They've now got more things that they have to live up to, and they have to now stay at that peak. And so it does not matter how good you get, how well you're doing, if we're not able to hear that celebration of, okay, I got this. Yeah, there's always an opportunity to improve. There's always an opportunity to push harder. And the voice in our head is going to tell us, well, you're not good enough. But maybe you're good enough and there's an improvement that can be made.
Yeah, I totally think that we spend too much time dwelling on the negative aspects, the not enoughness, the places we feel we are failing, and that we don't spend enough time recognizing the reality of who we really are, that we're a talented person, that we're making it, we're still here, we're still waking up, we're still kicking, we're still trying. That to me actually holds more weight than all the other negative stuff, but we don't give ourselves credit for that. And I think getting stuck thinking that the negative aspects of ourselves are the only aspects that matter or the only aspects that exist is just a great way to stay mired in the weeds, to live in the weeds and never be able to get out of them. I see it in so many places in my life, and I see it in other people. There's nothing worse that kind of hurts when a friend says something disparaging about themselves. And I'm like, no, no, don't say that. You are so amazing. And yet they can't see it themselves in that moment. And I think this is something we need to scroll across the mirror and look at it every day to remind ourselves that we may be struggling, things may be hard, and we are a good person. We are working hard. We are still trying. We're putting in effort, even if those are teeny tiny baby steps. We're still showing up. And we have a lot of worthy qualities that make us amazing people. And that's true no matter who you are. That's what I believe. That's true regardless of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading this book. I actually posted on Facebook about this yesterday, and it's really interesting. So the heroes have to die and go into the, I don't know, the fantasy version of the underworld or whatever, and they're moving their way through, and a couple of them fall into the abyss. And as they're making their way through, they're getting heavier and they're losing their light. And at one point, they figure out that the only way to get out of the abyss is to become more light. And the only way to become lighter is to lose their weight. And the weight has been caused by all of the regrets. They're not forgiving themselves for something that they've done, and they're not forgiving other people for things that have been done to them. And that is weighing them down. So, in order for them to climb out of the abyss, they have to lose the weight. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is so true to where I am right now, is I'm stuck in the abyss. I'm stuck in the weeds, and the only way out is to drop the weight, and is to recognize what is true here and what is not true." The voice in my head is buying into all of the media telling me that because I'm over 40, I'm having hormonal problems and I need to lose weight and I need to look like this. And it's not okay that I've gained 10 pounds. And none of these messages are saying that I'm unhealthy. They're just saying that what I'm doing isn't acceptable. And so that voice in my head is like, oh, look at you, another thing you're failing at. And it's so interesting how we fit into that box that we have constructed. We don't feel like we're good enough. And quite honestly, for some reason, we keep changing the parameters of it. So we get there and we achieve everything that we want. I look back on photos of myself 3 years ago and go, wow, I wish she hadn't have been so worried about how she looked, because she looks amazing. It's such an interesting place until we actually start to conquer the person that's in our head and the voices and the conversations we're having within and without. We are going to always be mired in the weeds. We're always going to keep getting dragged back into them because, yeah, the whole idea of if we don't forgive ourselves, we don't forgive other people, then we're basically drinking poison and slowly dying ourselves.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's cultural, it's the social media influence, it's everything around us. I think sometimes as women, we have different challenges than men have, but it's everywhere. And it all starts with how we talk about ourselves. And I think the thing that can be hardest sometimes is that little voice can be really super subtle. So you're seeing things on social media that aren't outright telling you that you're a failure or that things are not the way they should be, but yet the underlying message, that sort of subliminal subconscious message. And that's the message that we end up embodying. That's the message that we end up internalizing. And I think is the hardest one to combat, because at first glance, when you're like, oh, well, I don't think that way. And it's only until you dig a little deeper that you realize how much you probably do. With our pets, they have such unconditional love that it's hard for us to wrap our heads around giving that to ourselves. But yet there's such a great example of how to just be in that space, that non-critical, non-judgmental space, and support not only themselves, but the beings around them. And it's such a gift that they give us that is worth tapping into. If you're not sure about it, go connect with your pet. If you're ever having a bad day or you're having a hard time finding it, go connect with your pet, because I guarantee you they will be thrilled to help you find your way back to that. It's a skill and a talent that they have. And one of those ways that we should be learning from our pets to get better at being human by embodying the way that they are with us and around us and for us. And it's just one of the ways that we can support each other when you have that kind of relationship with your pet.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see the Instagram reel that I sent you with the girl and her pet cow?
Yes. Was it aggressive snuggles? We'll put the link to that in the show notes, but it's hilarious.
And really everything you're saying, Ginny, I'm just thinking, and this is why you need a pet cow, because her whole gig was that they're so big that you can climb on top of the cow and really get a good snuggle aggressively, and that cow is so big that it can take it. And I was like, yeah, it's so true. So if you really want to embody this, go and get snuggles from a cow, because that's gonna it's gonna really get you there.
I wouldn't try it with any cow, but yeah, clearly there are some cows out there that can handle that level of super snuggles.
super, super snuggles. Sorry for the background noises. My precise dog just had to come in. He's actually pretty good. When he sits down on top of me, I can really wrap my arms around him and feel that real grounded love that you're talking about, right? It's the same with snuggling a teddy bear, right? That stuffy just has such, and this is my truth. You might be laughing at me, but I feel like stuffies just embody unconditional love as well, in a way that if we can pour ourselves into them and all they do is just hold space for us. Like, I have this big stuffed bear that he's the coolest ever. He's not allowed to travel with us, so I've lent him to my friend's daughter, and every time they see me, do you need Ferdinand and Armstrong back? I'm like, no, you can keep looking after them. Ferdinand is essentially mine. Armstrong, I'm okay with letting go of, but they'll be babysitting Ferdinand for a very long time, I imagine. Finding that space and finding places where you can really feel that unconditional love, which will allow us to find it more in ourselves, I think, to break those barriers down. And like you say, with meditation creates that space for you to not have those thoughts be the number one thing in your head for just a short period of time, and to give yourself the opportunity to actually hear them and let them pass through, as opposed to attaching onto them and making them mean something about who you are and how you are in the world, because that's just one side of the story. And there are so many sides to the story.
Yeah. I think that brings to mind the phrase that I love to use, that's don't believe everything you think. And it's
Yeah.
very true about things you think about yourself, but it's also true about things you think about the external world. And then none of it is all true. And there are a lot of things that might not be said that are true. But you have to be willing to suspend your belief about what you believe that is 100% true long enough to allow the other things to come in. And so often the only thing we allow in is the bad stuff. And you can't believe everything that you think is true. It's just not, that's not reality. The bigger picture of reality is there's so much more out there and there's so much more available to us at any given time. We have to fight against our brain. We have to argue with our brain and insist that things are not just limited to those thoughts or the negative things that we think about ourselves.
Well, absolutely. And I firmly believe that if you don't know the real story, if there's something has happened and there are several different stories that could be true in that moment, and you will never know the reality of the story, why not make up one that makes you feel good? Why not believe the story that is going to give you a positive, warm, fuzzy feeling versus the story that makes you feel like poop? Because you are the author of your story. You get to write it. Unless you have concrete evidence to a certain thing being a certain way, why not make it be whatever you want it to be? Right? You see a guy in a bar and he's looking at you. Why not believe that that guy is sitting there going, wow, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen? She looks so good. She's so confident. I would love to meet her. Like, as opposed to, you could believe the story of, wow, do I have something on my face? Is there something hanging out of my nose?
Yeah.
You might not ever talk to that person. You might not ever know, but we only create the reality from the energy we put out. And I have been going back to the places that have helped me in the past. And one of the places that really has helped me in the past is Joe Dispenza's Future Vision, stepping into the energy, changing. If you do the same thing every day, if you believe the same thoughts every day, then you're going to get the same outcome. How can I step back into that place? Because that meditation, that thought stream has really helped me in the past, because it does exactly what we're talking about. It takes you out of this negative belief system that the moment you wake up, you start thinking about all the things. And so then you just do the same thing again. How can you think differently in order to create a different outcome for your day, your life? There's the story of the husband and the wife, and the wife has been cooking and the dinner's ready and the husband's not home. And by the time the husband gets home, he opens the door and she just rams it down his throat and is angry and blows up because she's believing the story that he's been inconsiderate, he hasn't called, he's been doing something he shouldn't, whatever the wife has made up in her head. And then the second option is that the husband gets home and it's like, hey, you've obviously had a long day. Let me give you a hug. I've got dinner on the table for you. Come in, take your shoes off. And whether it be the wife or the husband coming home late, whatever, but that idea that you can shape the situation that is going to happen, and you can literally decide what experience you're going to have in that moment by the way that you interact with the person. So if you are believing a negative story, you're going to then behave in a negative way and you are going to create a negative outcome. Whereas if we can come at ourselves and other people with that empathy, that compassion, that concept of you have no idea what somebody else is going through. So treat them kindly, because that way you'll get kindness in return. If you go at people with that negative story that's coming in your head, you're probably going to create it.
Yeah. And the reality is, we really have no idea what's happening with other people. We talked a little bit before about the four agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz's four agreements. And the two that I think relate to this most impactfully are don't take things personally and don't make assumptions. And that's exactly what you're talking about there. If somebody cuts me off in traffic, I can assume that they don't like blue trucks and that's why they cut me off. Or I can assume that they're having a really bad day and they're in a hurry to get somewhere because they just had an emergency. There's two different ways I can look at that. And one of them takes it personally, like it's a personal affront to myself, and assumes something about them. And the other way gives them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt and allows some room for something going on. Who knows? Maybe they split up with their partner, or their dog just died, or who knows what's going on in their life. They could have lost their job. Anything could have been happening that could be a really terrible situation that made them make a not so great judgment call in traffic, a not very kind move in traffic. And if we can step back and not make assumptions and not take things personally, even when we think them about ourselves or about a situation, then our lives will get easier and the lives of people around us will get easier. But we won't sit there in the weeds hating on ourselves for whatever the situation is. Yes, we can have room to improve and we can be amazing people at the same time.
Well, to that point as well, maybe the driver of the truck or the driver of the car that cut you off does hate blue trucks, because every time he gets near a blue truck, the person honks at them and flips the bird at them. And so it's exasperating the fact that they hate blue trucks. However, when you, as a blue truck driver, actually give courtesy and allow space for there to be another possibility, it actually allows space for there to be another possibility for that person. And this is a ridiculous example to run down with, but then they go, hey, well, maybe all people in blue trucks aren't that bad. And even just that energetic ripple of you allowing the space to be like, oh, maybe something else is going on I don't understand in this person's life. That person feels that energetic space and might not cut somebody off the next time. And I think even if we always assume the best about ourselves and other people, it actually allows room for ourselves to get better. If I assume about myself that, yeah, I suck and I'm a failure and I'm not even able to do a workout, well, then I'm going to continue to suck and not do the workouts and make bad food choices and run down that path. Whereas as soon as I allow space, well, maybe that's not true. Could we run an experiment to see whether you do have self control over not eating all the chocolate chips in the bag? Oh, look, you were able to do that. And it's the same thing when you're on your bicycle, right? Making the assumption that I suck and I'm never going to get better, that provides no room for the possibility of, if I ride my bike once a week and each time I go out, I focus on practicing one specific skills, I want to get better at braking. So this week I'm going to go and ride a trail that requires me to practice my braking and think about my braking. And that is going to be the number one focus. And the rest of the things, I'm not going to worry about them. I'm just going to focus on my braking. And your braking will get a little bit better. Next time you go out, maybe I want to get better at corners. So I'm just going to really focus on, when I'm doing any corners on this ride, I'm going to think about the skills and the techniques and the ways to ride the corners better. And I'm going to let everything else just be as it is. You're going to get a little bit better, instead of going out and being like, well, I don't want to do that. Well, yeah, okay, we can do that trail, but it's going to suck because I suck at corners. I don't like them because I'm not good at them. And like, we make these assumptions. And just one more little story here. is I had a parent who signed his kids up for mountain bike camp next week. And he came back to me the other day and he said, "Oh, we've been riding with our daughter and she's really not enjoying mountain biking. So I'm thinking that I should pull her out of the camp. Can I get a refund?" And I respond, I'm like, "Absolutely. If you don't think it's the right thing for her, that's totally fine. I'm happy to refund you. However, maybe if she's in an environment with other kids her age, other people of similar levels, and a group in a fun environment learning some of the skills that make mountain biking easier, maybe she'll have fun. Like maybe just going out with the family isn't doing it for her." What I see a lot of the time is there's fear, there's lack of confidence, and these kids, especially us girls, that voice in our head is so strong, we give up on ourselves. And then so not giving her the opportunity to learn a few skills, do it in a different environment, and find out like, yeah, she might hate mountain biking. And I have a backup plan for that. If she's there on day one and it's obvious that it's not the right place for her, we will manage that in this situation. I'm definitely not wanting to push this girl to not have fun. But what if she does? And what if that is enough for this 9-year-old to look at the rest of the things in her world that maybe she didn't think she liked and try a little harder because maybe it was just fear, and teaching her that if you're in a different environment, maybe it's different is probably a really good opportunity. And he came back and he was like, "Yeah, I really like I like your points you made. We're going to leave her in the camp and we'll see how she goes." I was happy that I was able to formulate my thoughts in such a way that the dad was like, "Yeah, okay, we will try that. That's a good point. Let's give it a go."
I love it. I see the same thing with our pets, that if we are always complaining about how our dog barks or how our dog behaves or how the cat behaves, that's what you're going to get more of. And so it's no surprise that that's what happens when we talk to ourselves that way and when we talk about ourselves that way. And being able to open up room for just the possibility that things might be different or could be different allows the different to come through. Otherwise, there's no chance. And we will have the same story about ourselves, about our pets, about our skills for the rest of time at that point. And it does ourselves a disservice. Everyone can learn these things. I was having a conversation recently about will versus skill. Will trump skill every day, every single day. If you have the will to try, you will outperform anyone who has quote unquote innate skills because you can always learn. But if you have the attitude that you can't learn, then you won't.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think really at the end of the day, it comes down to what do you want to believe? What do you want to make true for you? And how can you be more aware and more attentive to that voice and start making friends with it or give it a name? I read a book once and it was all about labeling that voice and be like, "Oh, I can't even come up with a name. I don't wanna discredit anybody, but it was like coming up with a name of somebody maybe if your mother always was a problem, calling it your mother's name, or if you had a sister, or maybe there was a bully at school, Sarah wasn't very nice to me, so maybe it's Sarah, and Sarah is that voice, and by giving the voice a personality and being like, "Oh, Sarah, like, really, I just don't need to listen to that right now. I'm gonna listen to Jane over there. She's much nicer to me." Like, what are the ways that we can really start to be more aware and bring that awareness in so we can change the conversation and we can create that empathy, that compassion, that space, and overall the forgiveness of ourselves in all the things that we've done and all the things that we want to do. My little puppy had to come in
Yeah.
and join us. I apologize for all the noises today.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you don't find another way to do it, you'll always be in the weeds. And that's not a fun place to be.
Yeah, I think the key tool here is know that you're not alone. Everyone's got this voice in their head. Somebody's written a whole song about it. There's a lot of people that have written songs about it. And it's up to you to create a new relationship. You can't break up with yourself, but you can create a different relationship with yourself. You can become aware of what's being said. And you can also really notice how you respond to those around you. When your husband or partner tells you that they love you, do you believe them? My parents used to tell me I was beautiful, and I would tell them that they had to say that because they were my parents. They'd be like, "Well, actually, we don't. We love you." I'm like, "Well, you have to love me. You're my parents." And they'd be like, "Well, honestly, we don't really." I'd be like, "Don't you? I thought that they came." They're like, "No, no, you can actually, you should be able to believe us on that one." But, you know, if you're noticing that you're not believing the positive things that people are saying to you, then maybe that's a good place to start. Because if you can't even believe that, then you're really going to struggle with conquering the voice in your head as well.
Yeah. And it's the both and. If you're going to believe the bad stuff, the good stuff has to be true too. It's not going to be exclusive, and it's not going to be just one way and not the other. So, we are complicated, messy, and beautiful beings, and that is tricky to navigate, but we are all the things all at once.
All the things all at once. Yes, you might be 10 pounds overweight, and yes, you are still absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. Yes, you might be a beginner mountain biker and not very good at corners, and you're a courageous, amazingly talented human being because you're getting out on a mountain bike. Yes, you're not a great entrepreneur and your business is maybe not working as well as you'd like it to be, and you're an amazingly courageous, very strong individual for even thinking that you could start your own business and follow your passion, because it's a very small portion of the population that even think that any of these things are a good idea. So,
Yep.
with that, I think let's wrap it up for today. Thank you so much, Ginny, for your amazing perspectives as always. I am Natasha Lockey. I am your resident performance mountain bike and life coach. I am here for you if you are wanting to really step into your dream life. You're wanting to embrace the future vision of where you know you want to be, where you know you want to go, but you're just not quite sure how to make it happen for you. Reach out. I've got some great tools, some great programs that can help you work through identifying where you are, where you want to go, and how to take those small action steps to get you there. And I also am currently planning a bike, yoga, and surfing adventure retreat in Baja. It's going to be middle of January. So stay tuned. I'm going to keep telling you guys all about this retreat that's happening. We've got 12 spots. We've booked an amazing tiny home retreat space. I've got my friends from Exhale Adventures. They're going to be working with me. We've got yoga, we've got Mexican surf champion surf lesson coaches. I'm going to be doing some bike coaching and just showing you around the beautiful area of Cerritos in Baja Sur, Mexico. So, with that, you can find me on Instagram at Betty Go Hard, Facebook and LinkedIn as Natasha Lockey. And I haven't been as present on social media as I'd like to be, but at any time, send me a message and I would love to hear from you. That was a long one. Ginny, you're up.
Yeah, I'm Ginny Branden. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. If you find yourself stuck in the weeds with your pets and the relationship that you have, let me know, reach out, and I would love to support both of you to be able to get back to more harmony and a little bit more happiness. So, any challenges that you might be having, emotional or behavioral, we can work on that together. So you can find me at soulpetconnections.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube under the same handle. We really appreciate you joining us today on the podcast. You can find it on all major podcast platforms and ridingintheweeds.com. We would greatly appreciate your likes, comments, and shares. And pop a review in there too if you have a minute. It really helps us be able to reach more people. We appreciate you being here. You're doing an amazing job, and just keep on keeping on, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you all.